if we are tasked with remembering who we are and creating heaven, then we have to wake up from being the victim to being the creator and take responsibility that we've created this.
Right. Welcome to the Multiple Truths podcast. We're your hosts, Holly
and Brittany. This is a space where we can come together healing in community, where we share our self-love journeys, insights, and wisdom.
A space with no hierarchy or judgment, fostering love, compassion, and respect, and where we honor our differences. With open minds and hearts, everyone's truth is welcome here. We are in this together. Let's dive into the episode.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Multiple Truths podcast. Today's episode is such a heartwarming conversation. Oh, and you're here with Brittany today, if you're listening. It's such a heartwarming conversation. Honestly, I left the conversation feeling so full. It was such a healing conversation. That's the words that I'm looking for. Just such a beautiful healing conversation. I am joined with Julie today, Julie Conrad, and I'm going to give you a little introduction about her in a moment. But before I do, get cozy, grab your coffee, grab your tea, and get ready for a really lighthearted healing conversation. Julie Conrad is an intuitive healer, medium, and transformational teacher. She opened her practice back in 2012 with the thought, what if one person's life changed for the better? Julie's heart of service and talents have helped thousands of people feel more connected to their higher selves while healing the patterns that were not serving them. Julie is lovingly devoted to creating courses to help others utilize their gifts to serve the world while creating authentic lives they love. As a practicing medium, Julie blends her energy with those in the afterlife to bridge the spirit world with those who are here earthside. Julie is a channel for peace, comfort, and healing from the afterlife. So, without further ado, let's dive into the episode. So, hello, Julie. Thank you so much for being here with us today. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited. I've been looking forward to it all morning.
I'm really excited to dive into conversation with you today. I introduced you a moment ago, so those listening know that you're very much so in this realm of spirituality. I don't know if that's the right word, spirituality as well. You're a medium. I know you do Reiki. I think you're a Reiki master, if I'm
a
correct.
Reiki master teacher.
And teacher. So you have a lot of wisdom and knowledge under your belt. And you recently wrote a book as well.
Yes.
And I really want to talk about that today because I find it fascinating, kind of like what the book is about. So if you want to talk about it a little bit, and then we could, I'm sure I'll have questions that arise as you kind of get into it.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. So I wrote my first book called Conversations in Between with my mom in the afterlife. So as a medium, I've had my healing practice 10 years. And I've been practicing mediumship probably the past 5 to 6 regularly. And I know that it is so healing to bridge people up with their loved ones. It heals in a different way than I can with Reiki or Trilogy or the other modalities that I do. It just brings a lot of comfort. And so when my mom died, which is about 3.5 years ago, I was like, oh my God, no wonder people want bridged up, right? It just became even more important to me, be that bridge. And as she and I started talking, my mother did not believe in mediumship, by the way, when she was alive.
Wow.
It was a sin. And so we just didn't discuss that area of my life. She loved me enough to just let it be, but it was like a black hole in our relationship that we just didn't go there.
Right.
And so when she showed up about a month after she passed, and we started having these in-depth conversations that healed my heart. I was heartbroken. My mom was my best friend. And life without her is still hard for me, to be honest. And so these conversations made my heart feel better, helped me understand what happens in the afterlife more and how we're supposed to create heaven here. And I said, Mom, this information is so amazing. She said, we should write a book. I was like, we should write a book. I feel a little overwhelmed by that. Like, what should we do? And she goes, get a pen. And I said, Oh, okay. So I grabbed a pen and she said, "Write down these questions." And so
Wow.
I wrote down, I don't know, probably 20 questions. And
Wow.
she said, "Over the course of time, let's just talk and you can ask me these questions and I'll answer them and you can make a book out of it."
Wow.
So over several years, it took me years just
Yeah.
because it's hard. Like,
Yeah.
it's a painful topic for me, and
Right.
sometimes I just don't want to.
Right.
So I just took my time with it, and
Mhm.
grief is a journey.
Yeah.
It's not something you get over, it's something
No.
you go through.
Mhm.
And so I would write what she would say, her responses, and then over time, I wrote how they changed me, which I think that is really from what people say, that is like that's where it meets, humanity is
Right.
how does it change you knowing that? What
Mm.
if you implement what she says about not heaping on or, manifesting? Like it has really made my life better.
Wow.
So much
Wow.
better.
I have like
Yeah.
full
So,
body chills as you're
oh, I
talking
love
about
that.
this.
I love
I
that.
feel like, like you said, being that bridge is so healing for so many people. I'm
Yeah.
developing my mediumship currently. I've been doing so
Awesome.
for a couple years now. Um, excuse me. It's not, I mean, I do work with the public, but it's not something I really charge for because I don't feel like I'm too consistent enough quite yet. Um,
Right.
but I'm grateful and honored to have seen how impactful it can be. Um, I'm really curious. I love how you said, because it's one thing to have that knowledge, but it's another thing to apply that knowledge.
It is. It is. And
So,
don't you think all of human life is like that?
mm,
To know something is different than to be something.
right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm curious, you talking about that. What I don't know if information is the right word, but yeah, what information that you've received from your mom has impacted you the most?
Mm. I think this thought of not being the victim, of always leaning into being the creator, I
Mm,
think I knew that at a level, but
mhm.
just so you understand a little bit more, while my mom was dying, I was also getting a divorce after a 15-year marriage.
Oh, wow.
And I had some victim in that. Like
Right.
I felt victimized in that. And I think everybody who goes through a divorce, you kind of have to make the other person the villain to get through it a little
Yeah.
bit. And so as she was talking about being the creator, it really helped stimulate this thought that what do I want?
Mm,
Like we have to sit with ourselves to know what we even want. We know what we don't want a lot of
mhm.
times, but we just keep doing it anyway,
Right.
which is really such a strange human behavior, but we all
Mhm.
do it.
Yeah.
So through working with her and listening to her, it was like pause, take time to really get your energy moving in the direction you want. And she has
Mm,
this little trick called need to, want to. And I'm like, okay. So every day I write in my journal something I need to do and something I want to do, and they have to take less than 20 minutes. And what happens is your energy keeps moving forward. And after about
mm,
6 months of that, I realized I wanted to do all the things. I
mm,
wanted to pay my house payment because I had a nice house to live in. I wanted to clean the bathroom because I love coming home to a sparkly bathroom. I wanted to go to the grocery to buy nourishing food. It was this subtle shift in me that it was like, I get to do these
it's like
things.
no longer a chore. Like
Yeah.
like what I heard when you said that was gratitude.
Ah, so grateful.
Mm,
So grateful. And I don't know, it changed me. And then it helped me with the manifesting piece because
right.
the more grateful we are, the happier we are, the more
Mm,
we get what we want.
mm,
And if I'm saying I want to do all these things,
mhm.
all of a sudden I have this really beautiful life.
Wow. I feel like, oh, I just, again, so many chills as you're talking. It's funny, we're talking about gratitude. I made a short video on this yesterday or the
Mm,
other day for my YouTube. I made a little video on my YouTube talking about how important gratitude is. It's easy to say, oh, yes, I'm grateful. However, I feel like as humans, we are programmed to be so focused on the future and so fixated on the past that it takes us out of the present moment. And if we're not in the present moment, how are we able to truly be grateful?
yeah,
So it feels like you're really like this shift within you, seemingly small, but in my opinion, really big, like a very impactful perspective
very.
shift it sounds like you're very more so present, very
Yes.
grateful for what you have right here, right now, which I'm sure you know is only going to open up the doors for more and more to flow in.
Mhm.
Wow, I think that's so beautiful. And one thing I would like to talk about a little bit is you, of course, still have a relationship with your mom. Of
I
course, it
do.
looks different, and it doesn't take away from the fact that she's no longer here in physical form. Like, I do want to acknowledge that. But I'm curious if you could talk about that a little bit, and also because I personally believe that every single one of us has the like it's our God-given right
It
to
is.
communicate with the other side.
It is.
A lot of people put mediums on a pedestal, like, oh, they have this amazing gift, this or that. And I personally think it's like anything in life. Take a professional soccer player or soccer. Some people are going to be naturally really good at it because it's what they came here to do. Other people are not going to care about it because they're not going to have interest because it's just not for them. With that said, I believe that we all have the ability to connect, especially, I'm sure people listening have past loved ones that have crossed over.
Mhm.
So I'm curious how that relationship kind of shifted for you, how it shifted, or any advice you'd give to people who are wanting to connect with their loved ones who have crossed over.
That's a great question. I think my relationship shifted. I had a lot of cognitive dissonance, to be honest, at the
Mm,
beginning because I was relieved. And
mm,
I hate to say it. I don't hate to say it because it is the truth.
mhm.
That expectation that my mother had placed on me, all of
Right.
those went away when she
Right.
passed.
Mm,
And now I don't have any of those. I just
mm.
have her love. And so, in a way, it's so pure.
Right.
And my physical self misses holding her hand and,
Right.
laying my head on her shoulder and, you know, loving her in physical form, a
Right.
hug and playing a game with her and all those things.
Right.
But this relief
Yeah.
of just pure love,
Yeah.
all that's left is the unconditional
Mm,
part. It's
mhm.
really great.
Yeah.
And so it has been a big shift. And I love that, she will make me hum a song in my head, and that's always like, "Are you ready to talk?" Or the one can light flickers for me, like, "Can you sit down now?" It's like
Mm,
getting a phone call basically still for me. Uh,
interesting.
and so it's not that I talk to her every day
Mhm.
even, but I would say 2, 3 times a week, we
Wow.
have a conversation, whether it's on the way to work, like I would
Mhm.
call her, or in my
Right.
meditation, she'll show up.
Mhm.
Um, and I think you're right. I do believe that everyone has the ability to connect to their loved ones.
Mhm.
I think it's easiest to connect to your loved ones because you have a love cord with them. And
Mm.
so that energy tie, it's
Mhm.
still there if you want it.
Right.
Um, I think to call yourself a medium, to me, is just that you can connect to other people's loved ones too.
Right.
But what I find is that people can easily connect to their loved ones with one of their clairs. So we all have these extra senses to develop. And like you said, that you either practice soccer or you don't. And
Mhm.
if you want to develop them, I think it's helpful to know how that information comes in. And so I
Mhm.
teach a lot of my clients and students to listen to how it comes in. Are you feeling their presence? Like, do you say, "I feel my mom around," or "I
Right.
hear my mom," or
Right.
I have a vision of her, or she visits my dreams, or I
Mhm.
just know she's
Right.
here, her
Right.
cognizance, right? So I think if we can start to pay attention to our verbiage, we can start to develop that a little more.
Right.
And what I find is, and I wrote about this in the book, is people aren't quiet. And so the other side really cannot get through a chaotic mind.
Right. Mm.
And if you don't have a practice where you're quieting yourself, you always have the radio on, you always have the TV blaring in the background, you're always busy in your mind,
Right.
it's very hard for them to break through
Right. Yeah.
into that chaos because it just
Right.
seems like another stream of information.
Right. Yeah.
So I would encourage people, and I do encourage people, to get really quiet in
Mhm.
your mind, whether that's meditation or a walk in nature
Right.
or going through your senses and saying, like, "Can you sit with me? Can you come and make me feel your love?" And then go through your senses. What do I feel in my chest, on my face? Often I feel my mom, like a sparkle on my cheek.
Mm.
Do I hear anything? Do I smell like their perfume in the room?
Right.
Like, do I taste their favorite food? Right? Going through all of your senses to awaken them
Right. That
In
makes
a quiet
sense.
state really can help you feel your loved one again or sense them. Yeah.
No, I love that. And um, excuse me, to your point about just the noise that's going on all the time, I
Mhm.
feel like for me personally, I could only speak to my experience. Um, for me, when I really embarked on the healing journey, which looked like essentially regulating my nervous system, finding stillness within,
Mm.
quiet within, my quote unquote gifts opened up.
Yes.
And they were so parallel. It's like the more I healed, the more sensitive I became, or the more aware I became of,
Yeah.
all of these things that you're talking about. So I love that. And something I just would love to add is for those listening, if you are wanting to connect with a loved one in spirit, be patient. Don't get
Mm.
discouraged if you don't make that connection right away. And also, don't get discouraged. I like to say keep an open mind, because sometimes the way they will connect is not in the way in which your ego thinks it should. It's like sometimes
Mhm.
we expect this certain thing to happen, and really it's like we're looking over here expecting the sign to be right here, but it's really like flashing in your face right behind you. So it's letting go of that expectation. Um, I had a question and it's slipping my mind. It was about, oh no, it's slipping my mind. Um, it was about your mom and your book. Um, I'm curious. Do you know what? If it comes back, I'm sure it'll come back when it's supposed to come back. But I'm curious about, and thank you for sharing this openly. I know, like, losing your mom, my condolences. I know that was only a few years ago. That still is quite fresh. It's coming back already as I'm as I'm talking. I was gonna say, you mentioned it's unconditional love, connecting with your mom as the essence of her soul, which is unconditional love. And I feel like a lot of people have resistance to communicate with past loved ones because of ego gets in the way when we're here on earth. And I
Yeah.
feel like when a spirit crosses over, oftentimes it's like, because I know with mediumship through my development and whatnot, some people are like, oh, I don't want to talk to this person and this person, and often that will be like the first person that wants to come through, and it's
Yes.
often because they want to apologize or something like that. So I'm just curious if you could speak to that at all.
Yeah. I think in our humanity, when we're hurt, we hurt others.
Right.
And so when we cross to the other side, what I see is profound healing in the
Mm,
afterlife. And so as their healed self reconnected with their higher self, yes, they come through in a way that I can identify them as,
right.
that hurt person on earth, but also in a way that
Mm,
does shed light maybe on why they
mm,
did the things they did, or maybe in remorse or regret. I just brought through someone's mother yesterday, and she said, I'm kind of afraid of who you're going to bring through. And
mm,
I was like, I understand that, but let's just see. And if you get uncomfortable, we'll just stop. Like,
mhm,
that's okay.
mhm,
But what her mother had to say was very healing. And
mm,
she basically said, this, and this happened, and I treated you this way. I'm acknowledging it, which isn't that, don't all humans want to be seen
yeah.
and to be validated in their human experience? And so I could see that starting to heal her just by being validated.
Wow.
And then she went on to say, I felt great remorse that I couldn't step out of that pattern, that
Mm,
I had been so hurt that I repeated the pattern rather than heal it.
right.
And it was just, you could see it was soothing. I mean, she was crying, the
Right.
client was
Mhm,
crying. And I think we may not want to hear from them, but in my experience, I've never had someone come through and it not be gracious, healing,
mm,
this place of, I see the big picture that
right.
I just couldn't see separated from my higher self. I will share, I did have a man who was a sociopath come through, and he was a murderer and did terrible things, and he had killed himself. And it was the
Wow.
first time I'd ever had someone come through and say, in a moment of clarity, I realized how many people I was hurting, and I took my own life to start
Whoa.
over.
Whoa, I have like full body chills as you talk about that.
And
Mm.
so I just think in our humanity, we're capable of really kind of awful things.
Yeah.
And the way home is to heal them. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, some of us have to wait until the other side to
Right.
see that big picture.
Yeah.
I do want us to know no soul is ever born horrible. Like, you
No.
would never look at a baby and be like, "Oh, you're a horrible being." Like, what?
No.
What I mean?
I
Like,
know.
something happens that hurts
Yeah.
us, that
Yeah.
breaks us,
Yeah.
that we get these defenses and
Mm.
ego, and then we end up perpetuating that hurt in a
Right.
different form usually.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that you said this at the beginning, heaven is a state of being, or it comes from within, something like that. I believe that heaven and hell reside within us,
It does.
and we have the choice to create heaven on earth or to create hell on earth. I do feel that currently this world, unfortunately, a lot of people are living more so, I don't know, like completely hell on earth is the right word, but so many people are so wounded now, and
Mm,
unknowingly, I know and healing's a forever journey. It's like there's always something more, there's always another layer of the onion to unpeel. um with that said, though, I feel like, I mean, I don't know what your beliefs are on this, but I believe that earth is going through what I call a death and a rebirth. um
mm,
and I feel like the old earth is coming to an end. And in order for that to happen, all of the darkness needs to come to light for us to see it, acknowledge it, recognize it, so that we can dispel it. Um,
mhm.
but I
Or
feel like,
integrate.
sorry, say that again.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but integrate it.
Integrate it, exactly, so that we can heal as a
Yeah.
collective and create heaven on earth. So I do feel like, and this is not me trying to scare people or anything like that, but I do feel a lot of people are in a lower state internally, to
Mm,
nobody's fault. This is just because of society and ever X, Y, and Z. I
yes.
do feel that it is changing. With that said, I do feel like it's going to be a journey as more and more people awaken. um yeah, because I feel like a lot of people are going to start awakening over like the next 4 years specifically. I don't know why I keep getting that message. It's like it's going to
Mhm.
get dark, but it's for a reason. It's so that we can come back together with love, with compassion, with understanding, in unity. Right now there's just so much divisiveness in the world, and I feel like this sort of work is going to be really, I feel like now more than ever it's so important because of the
Mhm.
healing that it can provide. Yeah, I'm not sure why I kind of went off on that little tangent there. It was just coming to mind. But
Really relevant for right now. I think it's a really relevant topic because if we are tasked with remembering who we are and creating heaven, then we have to wake up from being the victim
mm,
to being the creator and take responsibility that we've created this,
right.
right? And so I do think I'm with you. I'm very encouraged, to be honest. In the 10 years I've had my practice, I
Mm,
mean, I have seen so many people moving out of, fear,
mm,
out of anxiety, out of what I would call their own hell and
right.
into this more heavenly state of creation, of joy,
Mm,
of yes, bad things happen. Okay, yes. Is
mm,
it bad or is it just something that's happening and we don't have to attach so much to it and we can say, this too shall pass. It is
right.
for now. I think is a much healthier outlook. And to
Yeah.
say, I have a voice, I'm choosing, I'm
Yes.
creating,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna love people. I'm gonna stand up for what I believe in a kind way. It's not a either or, it's a both and.
Right.
I think as we move forward, that is more heavenly
Mm.
here
I
than hellish,
Yeah.
you know?
No, I love that. And I love that. I love that you've been seeing more and more people step out of that fear, that anxiety. I think that's beautiful. And, you're right. I think we label things as good and bad because our human language is limited. It's, a way we can comprehend certain things. But to me, they're polar energies we came here to experience all of it. And I think as long as you find that center, as quiet the noise, regulate the nervous system, find that center, if you're able to remain the eye of the storm, find that peace within, for lack of a better word, you'll be able to experience those maybe harder things, remain
Mhm.
centered, but you'll also be able to experience the beautiful joys while remaining centered. I feel like a misconception a lot of people have is we're meant to be happy 24/7. And I feel like we're meant to experience happiness and joy, absolutely, but not 24/7. There's nothing wrong with you if you're not happy 24/7. I think it's finding that peace. You want to find that peace within. And if you're able to find that peace, then you'll be able to experience the highs and experience the lows without losing your center. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm curious what else you've talked to your mom about, if there's anything that you feel would be beneficial for us listening.
Yeah. I think as we're talking about this, creating highs and lows, I think humans stay in a low. She talks about heaping on. And she says that as humans, we like to heap on when one thing goes bad, then we're like, and this went wrong, and that went wrong. It may not even be current, but we're
Mm,
just heaping on. So maybe we had a fight with our partner and we're a
mhm,
little bit off from that. And then we're like, and remember when so and so hurt me? And remember when this person cheated on me? And remember when this bad thing happened?
mm,
That none of that is current. And so
right,
we've taken one incident and layered on until it becomes this big ball of energy that
right,
we're perceiving as a negative experience. And she talks about that as a way that it keeps us kind of stuck
right.
because really when we're heaping on and we're in that victim, right? That's kind of victim.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah.
We're we're siphoning energy from other people
Ah,
because
mm,
people like to be needed. If you say to somebody, "Everything's great in my life," the conversation's kinda over,
mm,
right? People aren't like, "Oh, tell me what all's going right." If
right.
you say, "Things are kinda bad," people are like, "Oh, they
Mm,
are? What's
yeah.
wrong?" And what do? We get energy from them. Some
Interesting.
people don't like the way that feels and they'll leave the conversation, but most people feed
Yeah,
off this lower level
yeah.
siphoning energy
It's
off
like
of other people.
I don't know, like addiction came to my
It
mind
is.
because
It is.
I also think it's a problem that when someone says, "Oh, things are going great," we should have people in our lives that are like, "Oh, tell me more. I want to know
Yes.
about what's going great," you
Yes.
know? Um, but yeah, and it's like, yeah, so interesting that we are that way. Again, I
Mhm.
don't think it's anyone's fault. I think it has to do with the
No,
programming and this
for
society.
sure. But as I pay attention to that,
Right.
and I've stopped the heaping on for the most part. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm human.
We're
So
human.
once in a while, I'm like, "Oh, I've got this going on and this going on,"
Yeah.
and I'll be like, "Oh, I'm doing that thing where I get spun up.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm no longer at peace.
yeah,
I'm spun up for the dopamine hit
right,
to get my adrenals cranking because it feels familiar to be chaotic."
right.
And then I'm like, "Oh, I don't choose that.
Mm,
Really, everything's okay. I
yeah,
have time to do this, and I have time to do that, and I chose to do this. I get
mhm,
to do this. So
mhm,
just take a deep breath and do one thing at a time,
right,
right? Come back to that stillness within, like, I get to do this, that
mhm,
gratitude piece,
right,
and stop heaping on. Nothing is wrong.
right,
Nothing is wrong.
yeah. Oh, I love
So that
that.
has changed my outlook quite a bit,
Mm,
in life as she kinda told me that. I'm not gonna lie, I felt kinda bad about myself. I was like, "Mom, I feel kinda bad about myself," and she's like, "Don't," like, it's
mm,
just part of the learning process.
yeah,
You know, she's so gentle about it. None
mm,
of it is very, condemning, but it's like, "Oh, I see. I see where
mm,
I do that."
mm,
And so now when I feel that feeling, I try to just pause and be like, "Do I really want that feeling?
yeah,
Like, probably
yeah.
not."
No,
You know?
I think that's beautiful. Being human, I think that it is important to feel your emotions. If you're upset, give yourself
Mhm.
the permission to feel and release, but not to get stuck in that loop because it's like a blurred line, It's you need to feel your emotions because you don't want to you don't want to hold that stuff in. You want to
Yeah.
release that because that can cause in my opinion, issues down the road with illness and
Sure.
stuff like that. But people, it's like they feel it and then they do what you said. It's like they think of the next thing that was wrong and then the next thing that was wrong. And it's like, it's again, it's like an addiction. It's like we're
It is.
addicted to this. And you said it's something about like I don't know if it was dopamine you said it releases.
Dopamine. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like this weird cycle that we get addicted to. So I feel like, you know, that's such a seemingly small but really big perspective shift that really can change your trajectory over
So,
time if you become very, I think it starts with the awareness. So for those listening, like, yeah, when you get into that cycle, just, you know, don't be hard on yourself. Have compassion for yourself, but be honest with yourself and yeah, just start to become aware,
yeah,
because when you're
I kind
aware,
of just ask myself, like, why am I doing that?
yeah.
Like, what am I getting from this?
Mm,
Do I need empathy from someone else?
right.
Like, is my cup empty? Like, could I
Hmm.
just fill my cup? Is it
Hmm.
because I don't really wanna do these things?
Right.
And if so, could I just say I don't wanna do it? You
Right.
know, like,
Yeah.
I think being really curious about ourselves,
Mm,
that is like being awake.
hmm.
You know, it's not going through the motions. So that
Mm,
for me is like a key, like, ding, 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 pay attention.
right.
Oh, I'm doing that thing. Oh, why am I doing that thing? And do I
Mm,
want to do that? And
mm,
this is my conditioning, but it doesn't have to be. I could
mm,
choose something new. So I
right.
think it's part of that being really present, being awake in our life rather than doing what we've always done.
Right.
Can we do
Yeah.
something different?
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think that's super helpful. Yeah, I think that's super helpful. That questioning, the honest self reflection. And this
Yeah,
is, I always talk about honesty because a lot of people, you know, and I feel like everyone's exactly where they need to be, but some people are not yet willing to be so honest with themselves yet. And if that's where you're at, that's where you're at, that's okay.
yeah,
But when you have the ability to really start being honest in reflection, I feel like that's when true change can really happen.
definitely.
Another question that's coming to mind as a
Mhm.
medium, as somebody that does this work, I'm curious what you would say to people who are fearful, because I feel like the way, you know, this sort of thing is looked at in society, you know, the movies, the horror films, there's so much fear that is instilled. And when you're fearful, you're not sensitive enough to, it's like you're restricting, right? It puts up
Yeah,
blocks, which really prevents you from being able to connect. Like for me at least, it's like the more relaxed I am, the more sensitive I am, the more aware I am. If you're
mm,
fearful though, it's like the opposite. Looking to connect with like-minded community on your journey of self-growth, self-love, and spiritual discovery? Join the Beehive, a supportive community hosted by Holly and I, designed to help you on your personal transformation and healing journey, and to help you tap into your innate wisdom with live monthly Q&A sessions, exclusive content, and a like-minded community. The Beehive is the perfect space to grow and step into your most authentic self. For more information and to sign up, check the link in the show notes. So I'm curious what you would say to, yeah, people who might be fearful, or your outlook on the scary side, for lack of a better word.
yeah. The scary part, I think, one, it's sensationalized on TV. I
Mm-hmm.
just don't, it's never been like that for me. No one has ever come through and scared me from the other side. It's just not like that.
Yeah.
Um, I think the scary things exist in this world, made human made in my
Yes.
mind by beliefs becoming things or thoughts becoming things.
Mm,
However, I think if you are afraid to connect with the other side, they're never going to force you to do that.
right.
It's not like your loved one, if you don't wanna connect with them, is just gonna pop in your face. They don't, they're not there. Listen,
Mm,
they're unconditional love, so why would they do anything to scare you?
yeah.
They only want you to feel safe and
Mm-hmm.
peaceful and bliss and
Mm-hmm.
joy and calm, and
Mm-hmm.
they're not in the business of scaring anyone.
Mm-hmm.
They're in the business of loving and
Mm-hmm.
lending energy to fill our cup, and so if you have fear around it as that it's bad, let's
Mm-hmm.
just say it, if you've been raised in a religion where it's been labeled bad, like I was,
Mm-hmm.
I had a ton of cognitive dissonance around that. And the first time someone walked through the wall of my office, I was like, I'm not even sure what to do with this, right? Like, what is happening? And then, I didn't want to tell anyone for a really long time
Mm,
out of fear of rejection,
right.
and I didn't tell my parents for probably 5 years because
Mm,
I was afraid that they would reject me. And,
right.
they didn't reject me because they loved me, but they did reject that part of my life, which is
Right.
fine.
Yeah.
Like, I can live with that. But I think the fear is based in controlling people. Because
Mm,
if we really knew that
mm,
when we leave this earth, there is something else, and it's not hell and brimstone, how would you control people that,
mm,
I always say fear is the fastest way to control someone
yeah.
because you're telling them there's something worse than here,
Mm,
right? So if we've been raised to believe there's something worse than suffering here, if you don't do what we say, and then you lump people who talk to the other side that could tell you that it's loving and kindness, you've lost control.
right.
And so I think, I respect everyone's opinion, but
Hmm.
I have never met any soul who wants to induce fear that's
Yeah.
from the other side, from the
Hmm.
afterlife. I
Right.
just don't see it that way. I
Yeah.
think they very much want us to feel peace here
Hmm.
and wait to get there because it's supposed to be fun here.
Yes. Oh,
And
I
so when
love
you
that.
hear that from the other side and they're saying, "Oh my gosh, go see the sunset. It's so beautiful. Feel the sun on your face." We don't get to
Mm,
have that experience. Hold a baby and smell them when they come straight
mm,
from heaven. That's what heaven smells like. Like it's like that smell,
mm.
baby
Oh, I
smell? Like
love the smell of a baby.
everybody does. And I always say they're just from heaven. That is like how heaven smells. And my little one, when she was 4 and talking, she's 13 now, but she was walking around doing baby talk. And I was like, "What language is that?" And she looked at me, she goes, "It's heaven." I go, "What?" And she goes, "It's what babies speak when they get here from heaven, Like, I'm just speaking heaven, mommy. I was like, "Oh, okay."
Interesting.
Like
Interesting.
supposed to be such like a joyful experience to be here to
Mm,
say, how close to my heavenly experience can I make my earthly experience?
mm. I love that. I love that. And, I feel like for me, like, again, just using my experience, because it's all I really have to base it on, over the last couple of years, I've really started to realize what a gift life is.
Such a
Life is the gift. We get so wrapped up in the day to day, the 9 to 5, the this, the that, the past, the future, that we forget that this is a gift and it's going to go
gift
by literally in a blink of an eye. We are not our bodies, but we have been given this body to experience this
all the fun.
for
Yeah.
fun and for adventure and to learn. And yes, to go through the highs and the lows, like all of it. It's such a gift. And it's so easy to lose sight of that, especially in today's day and age. And I feel
Mhm.
like it really goes back to taking a step back, putting the foot on the brake, taking the foot off the gas,
Yeah.
slowing
Yeah.
down, going to watch the sunset, in going outside when it's raining, feeling the rain, Um, yeah. One moment for me that it makes me think of the ocean, really like
Mhm.
going into the ocean and just feeling it, like
It
feeling
is
it with
such a
your
sensation.
senses.
Yeah. All senses are at play in the ocean.
Mm,
You can smell it, you can feel it,
mm,
you can taste it, right?
mm,
You can hear it. Everything's at play.
mm.
And they don't have that in
Yeah.
heaven.
Yeah.
They have essence. Yeah, they still go to concerts and listen to music and they do that. They interact
Right.
that way, but they don't have the physical sensations that we
Mm,
do. And that is a gift, a
it's
pleasure to
mm,
be human. My
yeah.
mom always says, "You like to go back faster than I do. Like, you like being human." I'm like, "I think you're right." Like,
Oh, I love
I think
that.
I just like it. I
Yeah.
loved having babies. I loved nursing
Mm.
them. I loved getting up in the night and looking at their sweet faces and cuddling
Oh.
them. Like, oh, that is heaven. It is
Mm.
heavenly,
Oh.
every second of it,
Mm.
right? We
Mm.
just forgot.
We did forget. It's like we're just in a I feel like a deep fog. And I feel
Yeah.
like more and more of us are coming out of that fog.
Remember. Yeah. They always say to me, "Just remember who you are." Just
Mm,
remember why you came.
mm,
Remember how great it is. Remember your ability to create. Like, remember you're there to taste chocolate and enjoy the sunshine and
mm,
hug a friend and make love and do all the
mm.
things.
And
You're there to have all these experiences that nourish you that
mm,
you don't have here. We have other things here that
mhm,
are equally great,
mhm,
you know?
mhm,
Somebody said to me once, like, why would we ever come back? I go, well, you like to go on vacation, but don't you like to go home?
mm.
Like, both are home. We
Right.
go on vacation to one and go to the other, like it's
Right. I
like,
have chills.
for
Oh, I
me,
love
it's
that.
this both can be home.
Mm. And
Yeah.
on this topic, it's making my heart so warm, I just love this conversation. But one thing that's coming to mind, you talked about it's a pleasure. We're here to taste the chocolate. When you said that, I feel like and I've fallen into this myself, and it's something I'm, rewiring my brain. And this is just one example, but I went through a lot of body dysmorphia, eating disorders, all of these things. And even on my spiritual journey at one point, I'm like, oh my gosh, my body's a temple. I can't have anything bad in my body,
Yeah.
and I've evolved, and my perspective has definitely shifted with time. But what I realized, it's like, no, you're not supposed to make yourself sick, but we are here to enjoy, to eat
Yes.
the chocolate, to
Yes.
have a glass of wine if you want with dinner. It's not going to kill you,
Not
not
drinking
saying.
3 bottles in drunkenness.
Say
It's
that again,
different.
sorry. Oh, yes,
You're
not.
you're not here to drink the 3 bottles to
No.
be in drunkenness and forget who you are.
Yes. Yes.
You're here to delight in what we
Mm.
have, not hedonism,
Oh, I
right? I
love
think
that.
there's that delineation. Like, it
Yes.
should be delightful. We're not
Mhm.
talking about hedonism.
No, I feel like people use that as a form of like disassociation,
They
to
do. Numbing
forget,
out.
to numb.
Yeah, and then it's
Um,
not heavenly. How
no.
is that heavenly? If you
Mm,
forget who you are or you forget your path or you're numbed out to the
mhm.
degree that you're just going through the motions
Right.
and can't wait to get numb the next time,
Yeah.
that's not creating anything.
No. Yeah. No. And I feel
You've given
like,
up your power to a substance.
yeah. And again, it goes back to, I believe, the state of the world. But when
Mhm.
you have that center and you're no longer turning to something else to numb, whatever that is, whether it be a substance, whether it be food, I know people turn to that to numb as well.
I love to
Or,
binge watch Netflix to numb out, right?
or
I think, YouTube it. Like, I think people numb out in all kinds of ways.
absolutely. Yeah. And we're not perfect, at the end of the day. So, and it's, if you
No.
do find yourself doing that, if you're listening, it's having compassion and getting curious, like we were talking about before. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, where is this coming from? Why
Yeah.
am I doing this? What part of me is seeking my love that clearly, clearly it's needing my love in some sort of way. So it's just, don't judge yourself for it, but get curious, and that way change can happen. But it's also not fearing a piece of cake or a piece of chocolate,
No.
not fearing enjoying watching Netflix or binging out once in a while. If you want a day where you just want to do
Yeah.
nothing, enjoy it,
Yeah, for sure. It's a pleasurable thing.
Yes, and it's like, just it is. It's funny. Even like it's easy, for example, social media is coming to mind. It's easy to just scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll. So again, it's finding that balance in all areas of your life, and when you do, enjoy scrolling once in a while. There's some funny videos out there,
Some great
sometimes.
videos. Yes.
Sometimes I just need a good laugh and I'm like, okay, let's see
I know
what,
it can really lift your mood really quickly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like anything, not getting in that loop. Um I'm curious again. I'm just like fascinated with these conversations that you have with your mom. Going back to the book, so this book came out recently because you.
October 2nd.
Woo!
Mhm.
Oh my
Yay.
gosh! Congratulations. That's really
Thank
exciting.
you. Yeah.
For those listening, I'll definitely have like that linked in the show notes
Yeah,
below, so
that'd be
people can
awesome.
like take a
Yeah.
peek at it there. Um,
We're interrupting this episode to share something close to our hearts, our virtual healing circles. We have been loving them so much and meeting so many of you incredible people through them. Brittany and I are passionate about bringing people together to support one another and heal in community. We felt alone on our paths for so long, and coming together in community has been instrumental to our growth, and we've both seen the importance in it. We aren't meant to do this alone. In unity and vulnerability, we find strength, courage, and support each other on our paths back to ourselves. Our monthly virtual seminars blend discussions, workshops, and practices to nurture your mind, body, and spirit. Whether seeking guidance, healing, or a listening ear, our gatherings offer a safe, inclusive space for people to connect, heal, and grow. Join us on this journey of healing in community. Together we can heal, grow, and thrive. Register for the next circle using the link in the show notes. We hope to see you there.
I'm curious if we don't want to give the whole book away, so I'm not going to ask you to talk about the whole book, but I'm curious if there's, whether it's in the book or not in the book, any other pieces of advice or anything that has come from the other side.
You know, my dad passed in February this year, as I was finishing the book, and I had to put it on hold for a while. Grief is grief. And
Yeah.
I wrote an epilogue with him, and it felt right to include him in it now that
Mm,
they're together. And I think advice that he has given, since he's been there, he just, I don't know. My dad has always been like such a calming force for me. He's a
mm,
very sweet man.
mm,
And I think I've known, but what he really helped me realize is that we're always busy giving other people what we want to receive,
mm,
but we could just give it to ourselves. That's
mm,
not necessarily in the book. There's a little piece of that, but I've noticed when I start over giving,
mm-hmm.
do I need something? Like, I need.
Right.
So could I give that to
Mm,
myself along with giving to other people?
mm-hmm.
But it's very interesting. And I've also started saying, like, what would you like versus giving them what I want?
Right. Interesting.
And I've seen just a softness in people
Mm,
that I'm not assuming that they want what I want.
right. Interesting. And I love how, what kind of I don't know, clicked in my brain when you said we do these things for other people. It's kind of like, okay, what is it that I need? Because
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, I know like I've caught myself in this in past relationships where I do and do and do for my partner and it's not
Yes.
reciprocated. And in hindsight, I'm realizing like, oh, like I was just doing and doing and doing because I was so desperately craving for them to do that back, but I never got it from them.
Right.
Being able to like give that to yourself,
Yeah.
just
The
even in
more
the day to day.
yes, making it a practice to
Mm,
give myself what I need
mhm.
so that I'm not resentful to anybody because I don't have unspoken expectations that haven't been met.
Expectations. I feel like, and let's talk about that really quick because I feel
Yeah.
like so many of us put expectations on other people all the time. And this is something I've really been learning to let go over the last couple of years, especially I mean, when it comes to all relationships, like platonic, romantic, any relationship, just the expectation, even like it was my birthday a couple of weeks ago. It's like the expectation of your birthday being special, or whatever it may be. And I feel like true love is unconditional. There's
It
no
is.
expectation. We don't get me wrong, have boundaries for yourself. I'm not telling you to accept less than what you deserve.
Right.
That's different, but we have these expectations like, oh, I'm going to love you on the condition that da 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 da,
Yes.
yeah, I'm curious if you want to talk about
Yeah.
that at
I
all.
I just see a lot of resentment in humans and
Mm,
it eats us alive. And I will speak to my marriage, right? Because I had expectations that went unmet. And some of them were spoken, some of them were not spoken.
right.
And what I've really tried to learn to do is love people, but also express. my needs so
Right.
that I'm not resentful. And if they can't meet that need, to respect that they don't have the bandwidth to do that.
So right,
Because then I don't resent them,
right,
right?
right. So it's
Because I can ask someone else.
right. So it's, it's like need, your needs need to be met in a relationship, but it's not
Absolutely.
expecting a certain person to meet those needs. It's trusting that the right person will want to.
That's right.
Mm,
And that it's our responsibility. People are not mind readers.
right.
Just because we think one thing does not mean that everyone is thinking the same thing,
Right.
but we like to think that.
Yeah.
And so the more I lean into, they have no idea what I want. Like
Right.
literally,
Yeah.
how would they know
Right.
that what I really want them to do is come over with a pint of ice cream and comfort me because I had a crappy day? I'm
Right.
just hoping, expecting them to pick that up in the dropping of whatever. I've had a rough day.
Right.
Or I could just say, "Do you have the bandwidth to, like,
Right.
grab ice cream and just come over? I've had a bad day and I
Mhm.
just need to be held."
Oh,
And if they say, "I don't tonight, but I do tomorrow,"
mm,
okay, great. I can
yeah.
wait till tomorrow. Or I can say, "That's okay. I'm gonna call so and so and see if they can come sit with me."
Right.
Rather than they didn't meet my need. They
Mhm.
didn't they didn't know. Or
Right.
they didn't know because I didn't tell them.
Right. Right.
Right? We're so busy not wanting to need somebody a lot
Right.
or giving up
Mm,
our power
mhm.
that we don't ask. And
Mm,
that is like such a core thing for me because I've become hyper independent. And
mm,
so it's very hard for me to ask
right.
for something.
Yeah.
And and then also be okay if it can't be met
Right.
because it's not rejection.
Mhm.
It's being honest. And
Right.
so the more I lean into that, the
Mm,
happier I get.
right.
Like,
I think that's so beautiful. And one thing that's coming to mind as you're saying that, so yeah, like communication, expressing your needs,
ah,
so like so important. And I just had full chills as you were speaking. So yes, I like 100% feel like that is truth. Something else that I'm learning recently is instead
mhm,
of having these like expectations for people, it's let them show up for you in their own way. And what I've realized is, expressing your needs, of course, but by taking a step back and instead of like expecting people to show up with the ice cream without saying anything, it's kind of like
yeah.
by taking a step back, I've noticed people are showing up for me, not in the way my ego thought they would. You know what I'm
Mhm,
saying? It's kind of
mhm.
giving them that space and it's like, "Oh, this happened and it was so unexpected and I didn't expect it at all." And it's kind of like mind-blowing almost.
Like surprise, yeah.
Yeah. Excuse me. So and I feel like this is with any relationship really, but and again, it's not accepting less than you deserve, but it's expressing your needs while at the same time knowing that people are going to show up for you in kind of like their way. It's not necessarily going to be the way you think it should be, and that's where expressing yourself is important, because if you do have a certain need, it's important to express that. But if there's not so much a particular need, also like letting people show up in their way, because it could be really pleasantly surprising.
It is usually, yes. I love to think about people, and, like, think really nice thoughts about them, and
Mm.
usually within 24 hours, they, like, reach out to me.
Oh, I
It's, like,
love
the
that.
best game because we go through life without people thinking really nice things about us on a regular basis. So I'll
Right.
just think about like a friend and be like, I'm so grateful for them. And I love the way they do this for me and the way they show up. And oh, I would love to see them soon. And I mean, it never fails, really. I mean, maybe once in a while, but
Right.
most of the time, I'll get a text or a phone call. I don't know, you're on my mind. I'm like, oh, I would love to do something with you.
Oh,
Like
I
it's such a
love that.
fun thing to just put it out there and
Mm.
I don't have the expectation that they're going to call, but it would be lovely if they did.
Right.
And then if it works out that we can get together, it's just like such a delightful surprise.
Right.
But I think thinking such nice things about people and letting them show up for you
I
when they
love
have the
that.
bandwidth is really, it's
Right.
such a nice way to do it.
Yeah, yeah. And like you, I was very hyper independent, so I can relate to that. And I'm learning that more and more is it's like to let go of that control. Like, I used to have to do everything for myself. It's how I
Yep.
survived. I needed to. So, for me to like a big part of my healing journey, one of the biggest messages that I got I was on the beach and Spirit goes, "Let me provide for you. Let
Mm.
me." And I just started crying immediately because I realized, I was like, "Oh my God, I wasn't even allowing the universe to provide for me because I was so busy doing it for myself because that's all I
Making it happen.
knew." But
Yeah.
it also reflects in our relationships. It's like, let other people show up for you. If you don't give them the space to show up in their way, they're only ever going to disappoint you. So it's really setting yourself up for failure. Um,
Yeah.
so it's something that I'm really starting to learn currently, which I think it's like really beautiful to like see and witness, just or like how it's unfolding in my life. But I'm noticing the time.
Yes.
We're already at about 15 minutes here. I feel like we could just keep talking about this. I'm curious.
Probably.
I'm curious if there is anything like any story, thoughts, piece of wisdom, advice, anything that you would that you that, oh my gosh, I'm like mumbling over my words, that you feel called to sharing with the audience.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like as you say that, the words I hear are intuition and
Mhm.
authenticity. And I
Mm,
think the more I do my own journey and watch other people's journeys, the more I realize that for us to really remember our gifts, be aware of them, cultivate them, because the world needs them all.
mm,
No gift is better than another. Like they
mm,
all are required. I think we really need to lean back into that intuitive self that
mm,
is leaving us messages constantly that keep us on track to our own authenticity.
mm,
And so I feel like that piece is such like a crucial stepping stone to connecting with the other side, to feeling your guides and angels, to listening to your intuition. It is the basis
mm.
for our path forward, leaning in and listening in that quiet sense of self
Right.
to your intuitive wisdom, and then being able to add in the layers of
Mm,
guides or angels, loved ones in the afterlife, right?
mm,
And creating from that space of authenticity
mm,
is the best way forward, I think, that we
mm.
have.
No, thank you. I think that's beautiful. I think that, yeah, leaning into your own intuition and
Mhm.
authenticity is truly the key to finding your path of most fulfillment. And I feel like that, you bringing that up is so relevant today because I feel like the masks are starting to come off. I
They are.
feel like we've been so fearful for so long as a protection. Well, even at a young age in school, just wanting to fit in, right? Like, oh, I need to be cool. I need to show up a certain way. I need to have a mask. So I feel like the masks, like I just said, are starting to come off. And I don't know much about astrology, but I don't know if you are very familiar, but I've been hearing something about like this, it's about authenticity or something like that. Like,
Moving into the age of Aquarius. Mhm.
mm,
Yeah,
so,
we're headed into a whole new dynamic as a
mm,
planet, really. And I love that because Aquarius is the big picture, the big thinker,
mm,
altruistic. It's a creator, and we need that.
mm,
Um, and the only way forward to me is to really get back in touch with our
right.
own self, with our own intuition, so that we can hear our guidance
Mm,
and create from that space what our soul desires, because
mm,
each person is so gifted. That's
right.
my gift, is when people come to me, I see all that potential in them.
That's so
And
beautiful.
it's such like, everyone is so sparkly on the inside, and then we layer over all these masks or
Mm,
layers of, I call it dirty gauze. We had a
mm,
wound, we wrapped it in gauze, and
right.
think about if you don't change the
It's
bandage,
gonna get infected.
over time it gets infected, it gets dirty. And so those are like films over our hearts, over our minds, over
Right.
authenticity.
Mm,
And when we start to listen to our intuition, it peels those back so that
mm,
we can move forward.
mm.
It's just so required right now, I
Oh, I
think.
think I think that message is just so beautiful. And one thing I like to say is showing up authentically is truly an act of rebellion. because it's really, when you show up authentic, you're showing up as you are. And who are we at the end of the day? Our soul is pure love, kind of like what we were
Pure love.
talking about at the beginning. So showing up
Yeah.
heart-centered, showing up in love, and that's the medicine the world needs.
Oh, so much of it.
Oh,
Yeah, it's way out of the matrix, like,
yeah.
it's
Mm.
to break that cycle
Mm-hmm.
and be ourselves.
Oh, so beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Julie, for
Oh, my pleasure.
sharing a bit of your book, your mom's story, just, yeah, everything you shared with us today. It was truly a pleasure to have this conversation. For those listening, I will have all of Julie's, like, I'll have her book linked below, and your just ways they can find you, like your social media, etc. So for those listening, definitely check her out. Yeah, definitely check her out. If you're interested in the book, definitely pick that book up, because I feel like there's a lot of beautiful little tidbits of wisdom in there.
It's
Um,
very healing. It's meant to be a very healing,
mm,
comforting book filled
oh,
with hope.
oh, I
So
love
much hope.
that. I feel like that's what the world needs
We do.
today. So,
We do.
yeah, thank you again so much for your time.
My,
And until next Wednesday, bye.
thank you, Brittany. Bye.
Yay.
As we wrap up today's episode, we want to extend our deepest gratitude for joining us on this journey. Your support does not go unnoticed. If you enjoyed this episode and find value in our conversations, please take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback not only helps us grow, but also allows us to reach more people who can benefit from our community of healing and support. Every review, every rating makes a difference. Thank you for being a part of the Multiple Truths podcast family. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Multiple Truths podcast. Keep speaking your truth and spreading your light. We love you, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.